Welcome to the Intrazone, a show about the Microsoft 365 Intelligent Intranet. I'm Mark Cashman, a Senior Product Manager at Microsoft. On today's episode, we take an audio peek at the 4 Microsoft keynotes from the recent European SharePoint Conference in Copenhagen, Denmark. And I want to put out early on our thanks to the European SharePoint Conference team and each presenter for giving us the thumbs up to share these segments through the Intrazone. The European SharePoint Conference, also known as ESPC22 this year, brought together over 1,800 attendees from across 50 countries and was a big success in many ways. The feedback so far has been solid from posts that I've seen. This is before, during, and after the event. Really exciting to see some of the real-time feedback during the event, the verbatim from the sessions, and through the various debrief sessions that I've been to with the event team and also internally here at Microsoft, really seeing what worked well and what are some of the things that we'll replicate hopefully in the future. For this episode, I wanted to share some clips from 4 of the Microsoft keynote sessions, plus a little bit from Microsoft AMA that was held on the end of day 1. As we start the episode, you're going to hear a clip from Jeff Teper covering the approach of Microsoft that we take in making Microsoft 365 the best productivity offering out to the world. Then you're going to hear from Karuana Gatimu sharing insights about the metaverse from a Microsoft Teams product and use perspective. Next, there's a segment from Scott Hanselman. This is a unique and funny talk that Scott gave that was focused on mentorship, sponsorship, and storytelling. And I mean, this truly was a unique, non-technical talk, and I think you'll enjoy the clip for sure. Next, you'll hear from Vesa Juvonen talking through the continuum of opportunity for developers and solution builders of all kind through the no to low to pro code continuum. And last, we round out the episode, like I mentioned, with a fun segment that came out of the Microsoft AMA, Ask Microsoft Anything. And truly, people asked Microsoft anything. It was a packed panel discussion where no question went unanswered. Just real quickly before we get in, my overall experience, if you've ever been to the European SharePoint Conference, or really any conference like it, it was a large technical conference focused on Microsoft 365, Power Platform. It had elements for end users, business, IT. And for me, arriving in Copenhagen, I certainly knew a lot of people from the MVP community, from the technical community, but I also got a chance to network and meet with a lot of new people, a lot of people that I approached either after hearing their sessions. There were a lot of new speakers that I didn't know, meeting a lot of the attendees at all the different sessions. The next thing for me was really prepping and getting Jeff and his co-presenters ready for the keynote. It was a really nice, really big room. They had elements before that they were bringing in with kind of an introduction with drummers that was really exciting. And of course, working with Jeff and his team to get out what it is most top of mind, snuck in a couple of things that were just about to release, some of the sort of updated UI elements as we were getting ready to roll out some things almost in real time around the conference. It's always a chance to catch up with some MVPs and the community friends that I've known over the years. And again, if you're interested in an in-person experience in 2023, or have you recently been to them, you'll know that the networking side, certainly from a work perspective, is always good. It's great to hear feedback. It's great to hear where people are having questions and concerns or just seeing general excitement. But it's also just a chance to get together with like-minded people and chat and grab coffee. And I am one of those people that have missed that over the last few years. So it's nice to get that both in the States and, of course, abroad. And the European community is very similar in the ways of wanting to connect and share thoughts and be open and inclusive. It was a really nice experience. On the direct front for me, I got to deliver a session around Microsoft Lists and Loop. The focus was helping for people and myself going through the prep for the session to better understand how Lists and Loop can help you organize and keep sane. So keeping lists as I have for events and product shipping with the list team or the SharePoint admin team has helped me greatly. I'm not the most organized person in the world. And so it's really helped me stay on top of both a schedule with other people where I don't want to be the person that forgets to do something, but also just keeping organized in terms of what have I done, what will I be doing. And with Loop, it sort of brings that real-time element where I can work with other people on a chat, in an email, to outline an agenda, or to outline, like we do, the discussion outline for the intrazone, or if anything, just to plan and have it be more inclusive for everybody that's involved and just a lot easier to do. So that was a really fun session to get the feedback, and have that be one of the elements for me that was plugging into the community, plugging into the event, and very nice in terms of how the event rolled out. So the whole of the experience in Copenhagen, or wherever they are in the future, I'll get to that towards the end, where the next ESPC is if you're interested. This is a great event, but I highly encourage it from getting that real-time connection, real-time feedback, and my experience working with Sarah, Kevin, Colleen, Pamela, Ella, and the whole European SharePoint Conference crew paid off in many ways. They put on a great event. For me as an individual, I really appreciated just being there and getting to be involved. I hope that you, listening to this episode, get a sense of what was shared there, both in these sessions and a little bit beyond. So if you are ready to relive a few beats from Copenhagen, Denmark, I say let us jump into it. So here is Jeff Teper from his opening keynote of the European SharePoint Conference 2022. His session was titled Hybrid Work Innovations, and here's Jeff.
We've got a lot to cover today. When I look at this script that I write for each of these, there's always, this is the busiest year yet. And I double check that that's true. And it really is. The number of things we added to our products that had been around for quite a while, be it SharePoint or Office, or new products like Syntex and Viva and those lines. This is the biggest year for innovation we've done. And it's about really two things: helping individuals be more productive, collaborate with others, working any place, anytime, anywhere, on any device in a very secure and seamless way, but also helping the larger organizations that they are part of transform with the latest collaboration tools that connect inside and outside their organization. AI and machine learning technologies that help automate work so people don't have to do it all. And of course, the Power Platform suite of technologies to help people automate these repeatable business processes and build applications around their existing systems as well as Microsoft 365. But as the economy sort of went from its cycle up during the pandemic to a set of challenges, of course, CFOs of these organizations want to make sure there's a very clear near-term economic return. So we did some analysis, and we believe that you can, in addition to all the collaboration and security and transformation benefits you get in Microsoft 365, you can save over 60% doing more with less versus a disaggregated set of collaboration tools that you'd have to license and integrate and manage in a distributed way and so forth. And so we think there's a strong proposition for Microsoft 365, both in the hard dollar cost savings that we can provide to you, as well as the very substantial pace of innovation. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's first start with Microsoft Teams. We have a unique point of view with Microsoft Teams that we launched about 6 years ago, which is bring all these modes of collaboration into a single seamless experience and let it run on any device, including in room systems, and we've announced with the Mesh for Teams work that we'll be bringing it to VR headsets and so forth. But all your calls, chats, channels, meetings, files, etc., in a single experience. But then, of course, it can be a platform for partners, and you see a set of wonderful partners supporting Teams and SharePoint and more at this event. And custom solutions, be they built with JavaScript or the Power Platform, to tailor Teams for your particular business processes. And so that flexible, unique approach we have for Teams, we think was really key to helping organizations cope with the shift to remote work during the pandemic. And we're very, very grateful that over 270 million people are now using Teams every month. And this continues to grow. And we're investing significantly in Teams. In fact, this year, over 450 new capabilities to Microsoft Teams. Kathy's going to cover a few of them, everything from fundamentals and performance to new innovations, embracing things like the metaverse and machine learning to break through with new collaboration approaches in teams. And of course, we have SharePoint. The S in ESPC is SharePoint, and SharePoint underpins Teams and so much more. Just like Teams being, if you will, a mini suite that brings together a comprehensive set of tools, SharePoint is the most flexible content collaboration platform in the industry, bringing together files and sites and videos and apps and more in a single platform. And we're investing in both the native primary experiences of SharePoint, but also SharePoint powering the rest of Microsoft 365. In fact, let's start with the base part of SharePoint. Kathy will share some of the things we've added to the SharePoint user experience and more are coming. We looked and the communication site, the simple, new, engaging publishing capability of SharePoint has grown in 2022 by over 40% in its usage, which is pretty amazing to me to see a product that it's in its 21st year, continuing to have its core capability grow and find new users. We're really excited about that, and there's much more to come. Of course, SharePoint powers OneDrive and Office collaboration and Microsoft Lists. Stream we'll talk about. Our new is family members, extensions, Viva and Syntax, we'll talk about those. SharePoint's really unique in providing the flexible content management platform and experiences behind the widest range of scenarios. And so we're very excited that with all those applications built on SharePoint as opposed to in addition to SharePoint proper, that new data put into SharePoint each month has grown to over 150 petabytes. That is 40 times the monthly growth rate SharePoint saw 6-7 years ago when we did the Future of SharePoint event. And that growth rate continues to grow, which is mind-boggling to me.
Jeff's role at Microsoft oversees a lot of technology that we know and love in Microsoft 365, things like OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, and now Mesh. And it's always great to hear his strategy and approach, one that equals something that permeates through each of the teams in the engineering division here at Microsoft, and also has a great impact out on the world with how many people are using these technologies. And you should know the team is always open, as you hear Jeff talk, to receiving the feedback to make them the best productivity offerings that we can. And speaking of Mesh, our next clip is from Karuana Gatimu, and it comes from her keynote session, 6 Steps to Prepare for the Metaverse. Some of it was dedicated to the new landscape that we find ourselves in, this virtual world that we both negotiate on and offline. There's some things to prepare for and some things to understand about how Microsoft is approaching both building Mesh and understanding its use cases, so that in this approach to Microsoft in design and build and delivery of the metaverse, how it will come to fruition in Microsoft 365. With that, here is Karuana.
We have a position at Microsoft on what the metaverse is like, but I will tell you it's a position that's an early vision. If anybody tries to tell you that they definitively know exactly what the metaverse is going to be, they're lying. They're lying. You can't know. You couldn't have known what the internet was going to be before we got here today. It's not possible, but it's going to be up to all of you what the metaverse is going to mean. Right? We are the ones who are going to define this, but I am going to share with you Microsoft's vision for the metaverse as a whole. So let's take a look.
Imagine our world today. People, vehicles, businesses, buildings, hospitals, factories, entire cities, and the billions of devices that connect us to this world and to each other. This is the physical world. But what if we can replicate that physical world into its digital twin? A digital twin that is bound to the physical world in real time, that we can experience in mixed reality, that we can collaborate with, that we can run simulations on and find what is important to us, that we can apply AI to learn, predict, and act, to save time and money, to reduce carbon, to preserve natural resources, to improve safety, to bring us all closer. This is already happening today. Across the world, organizations are taking advantage of this new wave of innovation. that trends to an interconnectedness that enables the metaverse. Everything modeled in the metaverse mirrors the status of its physical twin, including the interactions and relations between everything else. By applying the power of the cloud, we eliminate boundaries of what this can do. The potential is limitless. We can now track and analyze data from connected environments to identify patterns, trends, and anomalies. We can now simulate any possibility, evaluate outcomes, determine the impact of any change or condition. We can now harness AI to perceive the physical world to improve and automate tasks, to give superpowers to your frontline workers. We can now give everyone in your organization the power to build apps and workflows, to collaborate with each other in this virtual space, to share and receive expertise at the right time with the right context in front of you, to move through the physical world and get relevant information about its digital counterpart when and where you need, using mixed reality. The Microsoft Cloud brings these capabilities together with the limitless computing power of the cloud and intelligent devices at the edge, and creates this framework for building immersive and impactful digital twin, mixed reality, and metaverse solutions.
So that's a vision for what the metaverse can be. And a good deal of this is happening today. The capability to create digital twins of our universe already exists for predictive analysis, for monitoring, and modeling. But we like to think of it in these three pillars, right? There's a consumer metaverse, a commercial metaverse, and then the industrial metaverse. So how will these three types of metaverses impact you and your business? So we have this idea that the consumer metaverse will enhance that social and entertainment experience, right? But it also includes well-being. And this is something that I feel is a differentiator for Microsoft. We are building our metaverse with trust, accessibility, and diversity and inclusion from the ground up. This is incredibly important to our mission in all of our products, but certainly in the metaverse itself.
That is a nice look at what to expect from the metaverse in Mesh via Microsoft Teams. Let us transition now and take a tech pause as we hear from Scott Hanselman, which might be a little bit of a surprise. You think of Scott Hanselman as a pretty technology-oriented person, but I will tell you, this clip that we have from him is very much about technology, but it's more of the approach and experience in technology that we can all take. The event team approached Scott and asked him if he wanted to do a technical talk or an inspirational talk. And as you'll find out, I'm really glad that the European SharePoint Conference team chose the latter. It's one of those talks that sticks with you, and I'll admit it's rather unexpected. It wasn't the caliber of the talk. It was a high caliber talk. It doesn't have to be technical. Scott's a wonderful speaker. He's always prepared and peppers in humor and insight. I sat through the whole talk glued to each setup and payoff. It had a lot of humor, but it certainly had a lot of insights, something that was a thoughtful presentation in how he put it together. And he really knew who his audience was, especially when he made a couple of SharePoint wisecracks, which I thought was really fun. So as Scott says, buckle up, Buttercup. Here's a clip of Scott Hanselman from his talk, Mentorship, Sponsorship, and Storytelling, Building the Next Generation of Technologists.
I feel really strongly about this. And I want you to listen very carefully because this is super important and it's going to get real dark real fast. Buckle up, Buttercup. Here it goes. You have a finite number of keystrokes left in your hands before you die. I made a website. You can go there now. It's called keysleft.com. And you can put in how old you are and how fast you type. And I'm going to tell you how many keystrokes you have left before you die. And then, if you scroll down a little bit, I'll tell you how many books are left in your fingertips, and how many computer programs, and how many love letters, and how many emails to your boss. And then you start to realize I could be emailing my boss, or I could be writing love letters in the the great Scandinavian novel. This is super important because after this talk, let's say that one of you sends me a note. I don't know you. You seem nice, lovely people. Say, hey, Scott, great talk. Here's a question. That question is itself, by definition, a gift. You have given me the gift of your attention and given me the gift of a question. However, I don't know you. I'm not going to give you the gift of 2,500 of my keystrokes. I only have a couple million left. So I'm going to go and type out 12 paragraphs, and I'm going to email it to you, and you're going to say, thanks. And I will never hear from you again. Why did I do that? Well, hang on, Hanselman, I thought you said we're supposed to pay it forward and we're supposed to help the next generation and all that kind of stuff. Well, yeah, but not on email. So where do those keystrokes go? Where should those keystrokes go? Anywhere with a URL. Email is where keystrokes go to die. Take those keystrokes, put them in SharePoint, put them in OneDrive, put them in OneNote, put them anywhere. Put them on freaking Wikipedia, I don't care. And then send a link to that in the email and say, great question, thank you for that gift. Here's the answer. And then, here's the trick, you go to sleep and you take a nap and you wake up and you say, 10 people visited my blog or my SharePoint or my whatever. You just got free keystrokes. I have been writing in my blog every Tuesday and Thursday for 20 years. I took a break this year. My blog still gets 500,000 page views every month. That's free karma. That's free karma. Oh, Hanselman, I don't want to write a blog. That sounds like a lot of work. There's Medium, there's long form, there's Waze, there's WordPress.com. I don't want to hear your excuses. What I want to hear is that you're going to stop emailing people at work that don't ever read your emails. And I want you to put that information in docs, in Markdown, in GitHub, in SharePoint, in Word documents, anywhere that has a URL. And start emailing people those URLs and then go to sleep and watch your keystrokes multiply. Woo! I gave her like $5 beforehand, and it's just the best $5 I ever spent.
Whoa, you might say we have a finite number of keystrokes left. Definitely something to think about. Definitely visit Scott's website so you can find how many keystrokes you might have left. Go to keysleft.com, type in your age and words per minute typing speed, and you will learn a whole bunch of reality. Some of it might be a little scary, but it's a really interesting way to think about not only how many keystrokes you have left, but maybe some things you will do to conserve them. Now, aren't you curious how many keystrokes you have left? I was. Thekeysleft.com. It's a fun way to internalize some of what you just heard in the clip. It is now time to get back to the tech, specifically the developer tech for developers of all types across the spectrum of extensibility. Here you're going to hear a clip from Vesa Juvonen from his keynote speech, designing, configuring, and building engaging experiences within Microsoft 365.
The Microsoft 365 is growing tremendously. We get more people using all of the different services. There's more than 270 million monthly active users in Microsoft Teams. There's actually quite a lot of people using SharePoint, but we measure the SharePoint success nowadays more on the storage and the data, what is being stored. 150 petabytes of new content added on a SharePoint in a monthly basis. You can only imagine how much content there is worldwide within a SharePoint Online. It's just a mind-boggling number. I still don't understand what is a petabyte versus gigabyte or a megabyte, but it's a lot. It's a lot. As part of this momentum, we basically have multiple different services in Microsoft 365. We only show a few of them actually available within this kind of a classic chart, what Jeff showed in Tuesday as well. And all of these applications can be modified, configured, extended by the developers, or all the users, or the low-code builders and makers who are modifying the behavior. And of course, all of the behind of these applications, we have our cloud artificial intelligence and the synapses and the connections, which is the Microsoft Graph, which provides the power within our Microsoft Cloud. As part of writing and creating then extensibility or making those cards dynamic, we need to write a bit code. And there are multiple ways of writing that code. And as we're writing extensibility and actually starting doing low code or pro code, we call that as a collaborative apps in the Microsoft 365. And collaborative apps are really empowering the new ways of working. So really connecting the people, the business processes, the data and insights in the flow of the work. So making sure that the application is actually surfaced in those applications and services what the people are using on the day-to-day basis. So as you work in the teams, as you're working in the Microsoft 365 applications, we can surface extensibility and automation and data and insights for people to take advantage, rather than moving to another application or going cross to applications, and again, moving away from the flow of the work. And that's really the key objective of the collaborative apps, making sure that you are being much more productive and in the flow of the work. So surfacing, again, application inside of your work. Now, we do have a really great platform to do that within a Microsoft 365. So we have the identity, we have the data and insights, the compliance, security, all taken care of. So rather than starting from scratch, and building that insights of authentication, logging, authorization, you can take advantage of all of the greatness what Microsoft is providing. And as a developer or extensibility builder or a maker, you'll just build on top of that goodness, which is taken care of by Microsoft. So we have the identity, security, and compliance by default. We have the data and insights available for you to take advantage using the Microsoft Graph, Dataverse, and Azure data. We have the developer tools and APIs to connect into. If you are a low-code developer, you still probably need to connect to a data level or APIs to surface the data out from there. And then we have the user experience, which is about exposing, again, the application in the flow of the work and making things happen. Behind the scenes, one of the key components is, of course, the Microsoft Graph. We talked about this one already. And we are evolving the Microsoft Graph all on the weekly basis. Right now, the latest announcement 2 weeks ago was that the SharePoint Pages API is going to be in the Microsoft Graph by end of this year in beta stage, which is really, really cool add-on to be available there as well. The Graph is really the connectivity between the user, the data, and apps and devices, and it saves, again, money and resources from everybody.
Now you know the full continuum. It was a great keynote for all the options for end users, makers, and pro developers. Plus, I'll just put in a little bit here that wasn't in the clip, but important to know. There was a never-before-heard announcement that I want to share. It's called the Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy. I'll have a link in the show notes, and this is something that allows developers to verify their application that uses Microsoft Graph correctly by handling errors when the application is used at scale. So this is a proxy that simulates the Graph API, specifically the errors, to verify that your application can handle them gracefully, and it provides mock Graph API responses to use your application with test data. The announcement got some nice claps, and I overheard someone say to their seatmate, "Finally." So go Graph team grow. They listen, they're delivering. And if you want to do that value of testing and understanding how your application works with the Microsoft Graph, definitely take advantage of downloading and giving the Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy a go. Now, you may be asking yourself, is that all? Why, that's a great question. And speaking of questions, it's time to share a clip from the Microsoft AMA. I pulled 3 segments that I thought you would like, and you'll hear a few voices as we go from question to question, both from the audience and our panel. We're first going to kick off with a question that Chris McNulty took about the SharePoint Content Type Hub, and you'll hear answers to all the other questions from Jeff Teper, Seshamani, Scott Hanselman, Heather Newman, and others. As always, many questions, many answers from the panel. So let's kick off with getting some segments from the AMA, and here we go.
In my experience, Content Type Hub don't work. It's not that sexy way of deployment of Office templates. What I would like to see is a solution where you get to choose where the templates are available. OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint, Office apps, Office Home, anywhere. but one place to administer all your corporate office templates. With Content Type Hub, it's not good. Sorry.
All right.
What's your plans?
Chris McNulty.
So you love the Content Type Hub, did I get that? So what's interesting is the history is the content type syndication was originally introduced in SharePoint 2010. And it took advantage of the fact that there was a live SQL database that you could use to push things around. In a multi-tenant service, that architecture barely worked at all. So one of the things that we've moved into in the cloud is the content type gallery as opposed to the content type hub. So in central admin, you have a central place to define each of your content types with all of the same attributes that you had before. Additionally, we've added a new publication action that's driven through syntax that's focused on hub site architecture. So if you publish content types to a hub site, all of the attached sites in the information architecture will inherit that content type. And then if you have those sites that tend to evolve and move from one hub to another over time, they will inherit the appropriate content types as they go forward. So that's the architecture that we have right now.
Did we move the needle on your content type love?
No.
He says yes. He says yes, everybody. All right, back to the queue.
All right. My name is Mats, I'm from Sweden, and I want to ask you about the story and progress around the EU data boundary.
Yeah, we're making good progress on it. I don't know the exact time frame. We are putting a large amount of work in all of the teams. Maybe Sesha, I don't know if you know the exact timeline for it, but we're 100% committed, very active work so that all the EU data and associated logs and so forth stay in the EU. We know it's important. Yeah, any one of us can sort of go ping somebody to get the exact status of it, but do you know?
I don't have a specific date, but across all the teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, Microsoft 365 admin, you name it, this is one of the major investments that we are making right now. So it's on the progress.
All right, thank you. All right, next question.
I have so many accounts in so many different tenants, and I just want to tell you, I want you to maybe look beyond Azure Directory and reuse the user base that you have in LinkedIn. I am the same person, whatever email address I have and my LinkedIn profile, that is where everyone finds me. So if I can use the user that I have in LinkedIn, I would love that.
No, and the other place, and I'd say maybe Scott, but a similar thing comes up with GitHub, where I'm a developer, my identity is my GitHub identity. Could things federate to that? And so maybe Sesha, and for the devs out there, also maybe Scott, talk about, do we see federation to LinkedIn?
There's what I want to happen.
Yeah.
And then there's what the various and sundry VPs have the power to do.
Oh, sure, back at me.
But I think that the point is, though, is that the expectation on the part of the user is very often not aligned with whatever our business goals are. But to her point, her identity is LinkedIn, so you can log into Google, you can log into your MSA, your Microsoft account, you log into your Azure AD. The Azure AD is when you start getting into organizational structures. You're like, I am logging into the company that I happen to be working for right now.
Yeah.
But your LinkedIn is forever. And then from a developer's perspective, to your point, my GitHub is forever. I will always have.
I don't think most of our medium to large corporate customers that I talk to would want a primary identity for a user to be something other than they manage in AAD.
Right.
And they set a whole host of policies around. But there are some guest access federated scenarios, right. Like, a number of people at this conference are consultants, and you can imagine hiring them, trusting their identity, and allowing them to participate on a project. But even then, sort of these so-called evil VPs might say
evil.
Hey, I'm willing to trust LinkedIn, but you know what I'm nervous about? I'm nervous about the device. I'm nervous about, is your device got two-factor authentication? Does it have continuous access evaluation? Does it have, modern, is the OS up to date?
And so LinkedIn. You can make that happen.
Yeah, we could conceivably take all these device management conditional access policies and tie them to a LinkedIn identity as well as AAD. That's fair. I've never heard of anybody proposing to build that, but it is feasible.
Well, and the other thing is so if you use LinkedIn, if you use your email address that is your company for your LinkedIn, and all of a sudden something happens, and then you can't get into your LinkedIn anymore, right? Because the company email has gone away. So a lot of people do use LinkedIn as their ubiquitous email ID that they use for everything, right? You're kidding.
The thing I like about this idea, though, is if Azure AD is an app that you authenticate against within the context of LinkedIn, the user can then simply revoke it. So right now, I sign into Xbox, which I've been on since before MSA existed as a concept, and I can revoke app permissions. So I don't see it any different as that I log in on Monday and I bounce through Azure AD based on a number of risks, and I've logged into the company, and then I leave the company on Tuesday, and that has been revoked as an app, but my LinkedIn remains. It also gives the LinkedIn user the benefit of knowing that that person does or doesn't work for that particular company. The same concept exists today in GitHub, because I'm in the Microsoft organization via the GitHub login, and I can log into Azure via GitHub. It'd be amazing to be able to log into Teams for the company or companies that I happen to work or contract for.
Yeah, no, it's technically feasible. I think in order for people to let us turn it on, they would want to make sure that they would want a couple of things. They'd want you to make sure you had two-factor authentication on LinkedIn.
Oh yeah, organizational
and all sorts of other device policies for their authenticated devices. But if we did that, it would be feasible.
I'll just add one thing. Organizations, typically, as you all know, we work for an organization, they want to make sure that the right set of governance and policies are in place. And they don't control LinkedIn in a way, right? User identity is somewhere there. LinkedIn is a consumer identity itself. Unless this is where we constantly debate internally too. Can a user log in with the LinkedIn, and then once they are inside your organization, we map it to one of the corresponding organizational identity. However, like Jeff said, if they want to enforce conditional access for that user, and that's where the things will get more trickier. How do we now enforce the conditional access? Because the user is already logged in from LinkedIn. So there are some challenges like that. That's where this kind of scenario is difficult to achieve. However, I just want to call out one feature we just recently released. It's called multi-account switching, which is in a given browser, you can log into your organization. In your Me profile, you will now see you can add additional identities, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever the identities you want, and you can switch them right there itself. You don't have to sign out and sign back in. That's the new feature that we have added in the experience for Microsoft 365. Now, this is in the direction because we understand the pain that you would go through, like log into LinkedIn, log into your organization account, and so on. But at least this is just one time you would have to do. Once you set it up, you just switch between the accounts very easily.
Yeah, but it would be like an Azure directory. Instead of a user, it would be a role. And the role would be Pia, who's hired right now. And my name, my number, everything, I'll bring that with me. And then will give me the role. Because when it comes to conditional access, it will be like, okay, when I'm trying to use this device, if I don't follow it, I'm not going to get in. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good feedback, great food for thought, and a really great discussion across. Thank you. Now you have proof that no question is too big or too small for an AMA. If you see an AMA, whether it's virtual or in person, and you have a question, it is a great place to go to get an answer. And it will spur some great real-time feedback and discussion. If you stick around to the very end of this episode, beyond me talking here, just to wrap things up, we have included a bonus segment from the AMA. This is where I asked the full panel to provide something like a 30-second clip of a tip or trick or something that they heard as feedback or appreciated from the European SharePoint Conference show. Went through the whole panel, which was about 10 people, and they all had really great insights. So if you really want to hear more, wait to the end of the episode and you'll hear that full and unedited. This really is the tip of the iceberg of the whole event, and in fact, many in-person events have a ton of value, both what you heard in these clips and beyond. All in all, in between these moments of catching up with friends, making new connections, listening to subject matter experts about topics that you maybe aren't fluent on, I certainly did, there are a ton of things that I dropped my ear into and got a nice little tidbit or a takeaway. And the time exploring the different cities and getting a lot of steps in is always fun, especially if you're visiting from out of town and working in the in-between, getting out, getting a little fresh air. Copenhagen had a ton to offer, which I wanted to take a pause to share. The event team that put on the European SharePoint Conference this year announced their 2 next events for 2023. In the European Power Platform Conference 2023 is going to be in Dublin, and that's June 20th to the 22nd. And then later in the year, the European SharePoint Conference for 2023 will be November 27th through the 30th in Amsterdam. And I'll put links to both of those so you can go read about more, get on the wait list if you're interested to hear more, or start to register whenever registration opens up. I wanted to thank everybody that gave us the thumbs up to reuse their voice from the keynotes and more, and for giving us a lot of feedback to think about across the spectrum of what Microsoft offers out to the world. We encourage you to check out our show page for links to all of what was discussed today and more. You can go to aka.ms/theinterzone to find this show and all others. And we want you to send us any questions or feedback that you have for SharePoint, for OneDrive, for events across the world. You can reach us via email at theinterzone@microsoft.com or find us out on Twitter at SharePoint, at OneDrive, and at mcashman. Remember to rate and review and tell your friends about the show. Follow the show wherever you get your favorite tech podcasts. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host, Mark Cashman. This has been The Interzone, a show about the Microsoft 365 European Intelligent Intranet. And for those of you who made it till the very end, here's that bonus clip full of raw tips and tricks from all the Microsoft AMA panelists. And go.
All right, so panelists, do you have a 30-second clip that might be a tip or trick or just a thought that you have?
I'm going to change my usual answer for a tip or a trick, which is using OneDrive Mobile on the fly to be able to get to files. The answer is Outlook. Now, the question is not what has been Mark Russinovich's favorite excuse over the years to blame for any Windows PC-related issue is probably caused by Outlook. That was what he often said at TechEd. The tip I want to give is with Outlook Mobile. If you look at the search screen in Outlook Mobile, there's some new AI-driven capabilities that are there that integrate closely to Microsoft To Do. Using some intelligence to look at the files that have been shared to you and the messages that have been shared to you to show you things that might require action and prompt you to be able to add that to your personal task list in To Do.
All right, Outlook Mobile. Next up, Lars.
Yeah, we didn't have any Power BI questions here today, so I think you all...
You get a Power BI sticker.
Oh, thank you very much. I think you should all look into Power BI, how it connects with SharePoint and other Microsoft services. So next time we will have Power BI related questions as well.
My tip would be on related to the security. There are a couple of questions already here. I'm sure as an administrator or a security person, you are worried about access in your tenancies. We have this new feature called DAG, Data Access Governance. If you haven't tried it out, I really encourage you to try that out because it layout doesn't matter millions of SharePoint size, OneDrives you have in your tenancy. It will clearly tell you here are the top 100, top 10,000 that you should be really looking at because that's where majority of the external sharing or all the activities that are happening. So take a look at that. That's my tip.
That's a good one.
My tip is I am consistently impressed with the iOS version of Teams. Never before have I felt like my iPhone is an actual full freaking computer. And when I recently got the feature where you can leave Teams and then have a picture-in-picture version of your meeting continue, it just blew my mind. And I was just like, wow, I'm like having a meeting here.
We begged Apple for that API and they very nicely said yes.
So we did it with their help. When that happened, I was just like, what's happening?
Originally, they were worried that it would be used and abused, and we assured them we would use it responsibly and consistent with their UX guidelines. We love that feature.
It's super cool.
All right, from picture to picture in Teams to Dean's Caruana.
You know something, you're here at this conference, you're hearing about all these amazing features. I'm going to ask you to make sure they're connected to your business outcomes. Why do you care about these features? What are you trying to empower? And are you really helping the talent in your organization get the most from the services we create? Because, features without purpose are just features. So if you want to learn more about that, you can always visit adoption@microsoft.com. But, connect to your people. That's what I really hope people do.
And from my side, I would like to promote the Microsoft 365 community work, which Karuana and many others are leading. We have weekly community calls, a lot of samples, thousands and thousands of samples to get you started on the Microsoft 365 development or list formatting or PowerShell scripts and so on. So take advantage of all of those assets which you actually help us to create.
I would say the Viva Engage or Yammer Storylines feature went GA just a couple weeks ago. And it has really transformed my use of Viva Engage and Yammer. And I've really, many people who have tried to use Yammer but couldn't find the right communities, it has really started to reintroduce people to the notion of a social network. And for me personally, it's allowed me to engage, especially with my remote employees, in much deeper ways than I have before. So that would be my tip. It's brand new. I think it's pretty transformative, and it's a really new relationship you'll have with Yammer and Viva Engage.
All right, Jeff, we're going to save you to the end. Kathy, besides how many ways you can wear teal, what is your feedback, tip, trick, thought?
So mine is, before you build it, is there a template? There are so many templates across all of M365 and Microsoft. Within Teams, there's Teams templates, meeting templates. Within SharePoint, there's site templates, there's list templates, there's section templates, page templates. I get exhausted at listing out all of the different templates. These are the quickly, easy ways for you to get started and to build things out without having to do all of the work of the configuration. So is there a template before you start building it from scratch?
Mr. Burt.
I would like to recommend to everyone to run the Microsoft 365 assessment tool. It has a Microsoft syntax module, and that will really give you insights in your tenant, in your information architecture that you use inside your tenant today, helping you identify use cases of Microsoft syntax. Plus, it gives you a ton of information about what you have today in your tenant. And next thing, I want to also really thank all the contributors that helped us build the open source PnP tools and libraries. So thank you for doing that.
Microsoft Search aims to be ubiquitous in all M365 apps. So reach out to me or hit the feedback button in any of the Microsoft Search experiences and tell me why are you using one search experience over the other, or what's your journey like? What app would you like search to work the best? I mean, if you're in Teams, do you want to skip over to Outlook and search, or do you want to get Outlook search in Teams? So give us all these scenarios so we can figure out the best way to make Microsoft Search work across all the apps.
Mr. Jeff.
I'll make a plug for Microsoft Lists, because I think people have paid attention in the last couple of years, have noticed, but a lot of people haven't. And thank you. And we redid everything. It has this blazing fast offline model. Even in a browser, we do these magic tricks with SQLite in the browser to get massive scale lists that are editable offline. You can even create views and things offline. It has all these capabilities like simple sharing and co-authoring. Adam showed some of the new views, calendar views, and so forth. And we've found it, as you know, Mark, pretty indispensable. So when we have an event like this and we're trying to organize all the speakers, the way we collaborate is a schematized Microsoft list. And that it's just so simple. The homepage in the mobile app just magically knows the lists that are relevant to you. So if you're not using Microsoft Lists, try it out.
And guess what? To Kathy's point, there is an event itinerary list template. And it's awesome, and that's what we used. The last thing is just a huge thanks to the panelists. Thank you for their time. Thank you for your time. And it really is invaluable to hear the feedback. Good, bad, ugly, it is all extremely valuable, so thank you.
Thank you.
Lego Mark wanted to say goodbye to you all.
Have a nice rest of your European SharePoint Conference.